And welcome back to Thursday Live. What is happening, everyone? Good evening to all my UK friends, all my that side of the ocean friends. We have kind of a cool hit and run live today. There's a lot going on this weekend, so I'm trying to get the 543s done. And as usually goes with Thursday Lives, you guys are hanging out with me and doing whatever is going on in the studio. So it's 543. So you guys get the spoiler alert. You guys get to see one of the 543s before they're, I don't know what I'm starting to say, before they're presented for the first time next Monday on Facebook. So we got a cool one today. It's real quick. Should be quick, but it was a great suggestion, and I'm gonna have a lot of fun with it. That's all I got. So no show and tell. Again, we're gonna try to get right into it and get things hopping. And yeah, that's what I got. I forgot my cheers, which is coffee today, so I'm gonna grab that too while we switch things around. So hang in there, and I will say hello, and we'll get going. Actually, I'll move this first so you don't have to go on the ride. The ride of the camera. Hold on. All right, so there it is. And I will say hello. James, what's up? Franz, what's happening? Paul, what's going on? All right, let me grab my coffee. It's right here. Dropping stuff, dropping stuff. So cheers, cheers to that. All right. When I'll get comments over here, so it's a little bit easier for me to see. There we go. Close that out. And one of those, two of those. So one of the other cool things that happened on this June 1st of 2023 was we are finally past the monetization requirements for this channel. So I'm very, very excited about that. I have all you guys and girls to thank, because that is determined by the number of subscriptions that are on a channel and also the number of watch hours. So it's solely kind of determined by your interaction with this channel, and there has been enough of it that it has been deemed worthy. So that's great. So what it's going to mean for the channel is you'll be able to do super chats if you're watching and are enjoying it, or even after the fact. If you watch a Tech Tuesday and you get something out of it and you want to support the channel, you'll be able to support that directly on that post, which will be a blast. Plus it opens up a few other things too that will allow this channel to be sustainable, which I'm excited about. All right, let's get right to it. I'll say hello as we go too, because I see people jumping in. Ryan, what's up? That's all right, Ryan. That's good. Hello, hello. All right. So this suggestion came from Matt Nelson, and Matt asked for one of the old school beer can pull tabs, which I haven't thought about in a long time. So this is what I came out with. So there's your tab. I'm excited to do this one again because it's not overly detailed, but I'll explain why those come out better sometimes as we get going. So as I do with the 543s, I go into Photoshop and goof around with them and change them and do whatever and get them to the actual size. So those gray corners there are 3 by 4 inches. And I usually there's always 6 on a page, and I always make 2 copies. That seems to be enough. Sometimes on real involved 543s, I'll make an extra copy, but generally I never use more than just two sheets of them. So 6 images. And for the most part, it's really weird. Usually I only use 7 of the photocopies. I don't know why, but it just seems like no matter what, it's always just 7. This will probably be less because this is so simple. But yeah, even the cars and stuff, I seem to only use 7 of them. So this one goes up here because this is our reference, so I can see what the hell I'm doing. And then I'll move the camera around as we go because I'll be doing a couple things. So I slide this down. This is the Yupo paper, that heavy polypropylene paper. I call it paper, but it's really not. It's plastic. And it's got a special layer on both sides. I just thought it was the way that they make the paper or the product, but it's not. It's actually pretty cool. there's a really thin layer of whatever the receptive material is that they put on this stuff to make it work so well. In the end, I don't use it. I just put the Autoborn sealer all over it. But it's kind of cool. It's not just a sheet of polypropylene. All right, so first thing I'm going to do, and I've talked about this before, but those who haven't seen it. So I spray these with a spray gun. And even though I strain the sealer, there's usually little nibs or hairs or something to get in it, because there's 3 or 4 coats on this. So stuff usually, finds its way on here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this old X-Acto blade and just run over this whole thing and pull off, just kind of scratch off any of the little nibs or dust particles that got stuck in there. Sometimes there's a little hair that's floating around and ends up on the surface. So it's pretty easy to find them all. Even if I can't see them, I just run the blade over it and it'll naturally just catch on them. Once I got them all. And while I'm doing this, one of the reasons I was a few minutes late is because I just came back from Youngstown, Ohio, where I dropped off the Three Amigos painting at the Butler Museum, which is very exciting. That show opens on the 25th. So if you are in the vicinity, check the website. I will be there for the opening. Hopefully there's a reception on that day. I'll be there for whatever the reception day is. I'm looking forward to that. Super cool museum. Teresa, what's up? What's happening? All right. So then what I'm going to do next, so I've got it all nice and smooth. So then I grab, not that one, that would be too much. There we go. So I grab 1000 grit sandpaper and then just sand the whole thing. So what this does is there is a kind of a texture to it from the spray. This just levels all that out. Just makes it really, really nice and smooth and awesome in the face, yo. So when I saw this suggestion, I couldn't help but think of my dad. I talk about my dad a lot. And my dad, loved his after chores beer. And it would always be, if we were to go get it for him, he'd always say, go get me a Frosty. And they were called, in our house, they were called Frosties. So I grew up in the era when these pull tabs were a thing. So I am really familiar with them. So brought back, just hearing it, that whole beer tab thing, just brought back a bunch of memories for me. So I'm like, yep, that's the one. I'm going to do that. All right. So there it is. So what's nice about this stuff, I talk about it a lot. There it is, all the powder. It literally powders off onto the sandpaper, which is beautiful. It sands really, really nicely. And then it doesn't really clog the paper either. So there you see that top half corner has all the dust residue in it. If I just wipe this on my jeans, it's all gone. It's awesome. Awesome stuff. All right. And we saw with the cue ball on Monday night a couple of weeks ago when I dropped the cue ball that had this on it. And even though it bounced across the concrete floor, nothing happened to it. So I'm really excited about that. It's a beautiful day. It's always awesome watching Steve live. Thanks, James. You're awesome. Yeah, it's a beautiful day here. It's like 85 degrees. Marge's daughter graduates on Sunday, which is really exciting. We have a big yard sale planned for the weekend too, which is mayhem here. Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice weekend. And it's June. Simon Carter, what's up, man? What's up? Stevening, I like that. Thursday Stevening live. Nice, Simon. All right, so I was remiss. I really didn't mention it. This is a Scotch-Brite pad. This used to be 800 grit, but I've used it so much that it's really more like 1500 right now, which is perfect. It's a nice second pass over the 1000 grit. It just really kind of takes out any of the heavy duty, well, not heavy duty because it's 1000 grit, but any of the 1000 grit sanding scratches, this kind of does a great job at just removing all those. And now we are ready. It is super awesomely smooth and ready to go. Now, even though this is really, 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 really smooth, like super smooth, the base coat sealer still has a absorption quality to it, which is great. So it's not like if you painted on this side of the Yupo, where it's really super slick and a little bit less receptive to paint, there's more of a chance that this will spider web, like thin paint will just kind of skate across and make a little spider. This side here, because it's got some absorbency to it, won't do that as much. I mean, it certainly will if you push it, but it's not crazy. Here we go. Cody Adams, what's up, man? Awesome. All right, let's put some tape on this and we'll be ready to go. I use FBS tape to block off the edges. These sheets that I cut are 4x5. So they're an inch bigger than the final painting. And this tape here is 1/2 inch FBS. So what I could do is I could just use this tape to create the border. I could go right against the edge, you know, like right up against the edge. But what I do is I go over a little bit, like 1/8 of an inch. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just kind of eyeball it when I can see it. I said eyeball it when I can see it. There we go. This tape is see-through, but you have to be right on it. So I go over like, no, that's too much. I go over like 1/8 of an inch, and that gives me a little bit of extra. So when you see the final image size, it's a little bit, I don't know why I'm on the struggle bus today on this. So that way when I go to put the mat on it, I have that little bit of over, you know, that little bit of extra space. So they're slightly bigger. They're like, you know, an 1/8 of an inch bigger when they're done. That way when I put the mat on it, the mats are exactly 3x4 inches. I have a little bit of play. If I did it exactly 3x4 inches, then I'd have to get the mat exactly on the right way. If I had any movement up and down, side to side, there you'd see the gap in the mat, and I don't want that. So again, thanks Chris Arpin for the saying, but it ends up being cheap insurance just by giving myself a little bit of extra room there. Okay. I'm going to cross all these. Yeah, now I can see this one. I don't know what was going on with that other one. There we go. And finally, this last one, I just pull this back a little bit, this side, so that way it's underneath. And that just helps. When I'm done, it just makes it faster because I can pull the tape off all in one piece. It'll just keep pulling up the next piece. After doing about 1 billion of these, you learn tricks like that. It's fun. Franz, our first day of winter. Yes, you are. Oh my gosh, sorry about that. Although when I'm crying that it's cold here, you guys have your summer, so that's good. We can live vicariously through each other. All right, so again, that same X-Acto blade that I used to scratch off all those nibs, I just used this one to kind of trim the tape. This just conserves the X-Acto blades. Like I use a lot of these blades, so the one in the knife is always new and sharp. So if I use this one to, you know, do all the utility work too, it just shortens the life of this one. So if I'm doing a regular cutting, I'll just use an old blade like this. And I use these a lot. I have them. Hold on. I have a little cup with them all in the bottom there. So I do save them, and I use them to cut mats and foam board, and because the blades, I mean, you know, 90% of the blade is still brand new and sharp. It's just the very end of it that gets dull. So they're good for other stuff. Awesome. What I missed there, Simon? I'm coming to terms with stealing. Nice. Nobody steal that. Absolutely, it's yours. Copyrighted. All right, so this goes in my fancy new 543 holder, which I will back up and get you guys a little bit of everything here. That might be better. All right. So I got this, I don't know, it was a picture off of eBay or something. I will frequently use what I call pictures people don't care about, you know. So these are like if someone throws something on eBay and just took a random picture, you know, on their phone and threw it up on eBay and that's it. I love those pictures. One, because, well, you know, I love to give credit to the photographer that took the photo. Again, these people really didn't care too much about their photo. They weren't doing it to be artistic or anything. They were just using it to sell. And yes, people sell these beer tabs, and they also sell the whole tops of the cans. It seems to be a big thing. So yeah, that's kind of how it works. I love being able to find stuff like this, sort of just random everyday pictures. All right. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to cut this whole thing out because I got to do the background. which on the 543s, they're pretty standard. I don't usually put backgrounds on 543s, again, because the goal for me is to get them done as fast as possible. I really like to stay within that 2-hour window. It makes them viable so that I can offer them for the price that I do offer them at. Which is why, you know, even though if you were to commission a 543, there's an item on the website where you can actually say, hey, I want a 543, but I want you to paint this. That's right on the website. With those, I take a little bit more time on them because there's no discount on that. But these here, because I discount them so heavily, they're basically half off, or they are half off. I try to really work hard to keep these so it's a win for everyone. You know, it's a decent painting, but it also didn't take me a whole day to do, you know. All right, so we'll cut this out like that. Those interesting stories. Oh, thanks, James. Yeah, Dad was awesome like that way. And in fact, my sister, who's an amazing artist as well, she graduated from RISD with a degree in graphic design, and so she does these amazing hand painted signs now. And so for my dad's birthday a few years ago, I commissioned my sister to make a wooden hand painted sign that just said, "Get me a Frosty." So, all right, so there's the inside, outside. This should stay together until I get it to the board, which is kind of nice. There's usually enough little tabs, you know, that I missed or whatever, just enough that the thing holds together. So I just line this up, and remember, these are the corners of the actual painting, but remember I have the tape outside of that. So I just kind of like center it as best as I can. It's not like life or death if it's not exactly where it was when I laid it out. And then of course the neodymium magnets are here to do the job, holding everything down. Once I get a few of them on there, then I can just remove the backing and all the background like that. Okay, so this side of it here, I got magnets on here. That worked out great. But this side here is really, really thin. So I'm going to use some of the really tiny magnets to get this done. I can do this because they're nowhere near the bigger magnets. These are the real tiny, let me zoom in on this so you can see them. These real tiny, I just did a huge no-no too. Like I held these magnets in my mouth, and that's super dangerous because if you swallow these neodymium magnets, it is a trip to the hospital. It's an ugly, ugly mess. So don't do it. Anyway, these really tiny ones that I ordered, these work great if they're all by themselves. If these get anywhere near like another magnet, they immediately snap over. So they just don't have enough hold to keep them in place against another magnet, but on their own, when they're kind of off to the side here, they do a good job. So again, when you're buying these neodymium magnets, I love to just see what they have and get all kinds of weird shapes and stuff. And the small ones are pretty inexpensive comparatively. The only trouble is, not trouble, but the only thing is, if you buy these micro small ones from a place like Amazing Magnets, they do have a quantity limit. So usually a real small magnet like that, they'll make you buy, not make you, but the requirement is you buy like 25 of them. Now, I don't know why you'd want to buy one of those teeny weeny ones, but also the other side of that is they're inexpensive at that size too. That's a good view. Okay. Bobby Silva, what's up, man? Hey, Tone, what's going on? Dan, what's happening? Yes. Thank you all for jumping in. Okay, so 543s usually have this kind of blended background. It's a nice thing. It allows stuff to kind of pop forward. It also allows stuff to kind of disappear, and it's fast and easy to do, which is, again, what we're looking for. So I'm going to show you how I do that. I start with white, so we don't get a bunch of blue shift. And for this, I'll be using the Rich Pen 113C, the Mike Learns brush, the Mobro, and use one of these. Oh, never mind. I can't use that. Hope your day's good, William. Yeah, everything's going really good. It's crazy. It's busy, but it's really good. I got a lot going on. I'm doing a second painting for Mission Healing Soldiers. That jet painting that I just did, they have another jet and they want another painting with the same kind of deal but on the new jet. So I've been working on that. I'll share that as soon as I get that a little bit farther. All right, so here's white. So what I do is I kind of look at the direction of the image to kind of determine like how I want to set up the composition, and X's usually work really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the fade go from this corner from white to dark up in this corner, and that cuts across this tab, and so it makes an X in the middle of the painting. So that just kind of works real well. Sometimes what I'll do is if I need to highlight an area like this tab, see how bright this is? If I need to really highlight that and have that be an important part, then I'll make sure that whatever I do, I have the dark background behind that. And it's just going to work out that way in this painting, but it's something that I'll do a lot too. So this is opaque white from Createx, but through this brush I have it reduced 1:1. So it's 1 part paint to 1 part reducer. And I have my my awesome bamboo meat skewers that I can use to hold down different bits that I can put magnets on. So one of the things about this painting that's going to be really fun and it's going to work out well is that it is a very, very simple kind of object. The reason why that works so well is when I have a real complex object to do in a 543, I have to leave stuff out. It's inevitable, because if I try to put all the details in, then it won't be a 543 anymore. It'll take me way longer to do. But with something real simple like this, I can include every detail that's on it, and in the end, it still doesn't take me that long, so it looks intentional. It looks like, I mean, let's put it this way. If I had to do this as a regular full-on painting, it's going to look the same as this. So it's a neat kind of thing to have happen. It doesn't always happen, because like when I do a car, I don't know, you can't cut too many corners with that. All right, so that should be good with the white. I'm just going to dry that off real quick. Check comments while we're doing this. Trusty bamboo stick. Oh my gosh, Simon, I use them all the time. I use them all the time. I use them to clean the airbrushes. I use them to hold stuff down. They find use all the time. And I don't know when I picked up doing that. I've been doing it for such a long time. But it is definitely a cool thing. All right, next up is the black. So for the black, I'm going to use 10:1. Or 1:10, so it's 1 part opaque black to 10 parts reducer. There's no 40-50 in this because the binders in the new opaque liner are really good. They have a lot of strength to them, so I don't have to add 40-50 to it. I could, it would just make it more transparent, but yeah. So same thing, opposite direction with the dark, and this is going to set up the background for me. Now what's nice about this, again, this dark background is really going to help that curved tab pop out of the painting. I don't want to go too dark with this because of the shadow on this. That's the other thing, that the shadow is really going to help that too. Well, what are you at? There we go. I have a question for Steve and well, everyone, if you know, is there any way to determine the size of a needle? Bobby, there isn't. It's actually, when you get an airbrush like this and they say, oh, it's a 0.23 millimeter, airbrush, what they're doing is they're measuring the nozzle size, not the needle size. They tell you it's a 0.23 needle as well because that's the match for it, but there is no measurement on that needle that matches. Well, there is 2.3, but it's the cross section of the needle where it matches that 0.23 of the nozzle, if that makes sense. But no, there isn't a way. I mean, if you had another needle, like if you had a box full of needles and they're all mixed up, if you had one of them, like if you had a micron and you had to find the other micron needle in there, you could do it with a micrometer. You could measure it and length first, and then the barrel, and then the taper and that kind of thing, and you could probably you could find out, but there is no real measurement on it. So that way, hopefully that answers your question. Okay, 1 to 10. So with 1 to 10, what I can do now too is I can put in the shadow that's underneath, because I have the tab already blocked off. I'm going to change the lighting on here so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to remove some of these magnets now because they're actually doing more harm than good. They're leaving like a shadow, a negative shadow, and I don't want that. There's also a little hair on there too. Don't know where that came from. Okay, so there's a drop shadow down there, and there's shadows on this side over here as well. And I'm going to, it's funny, I was thinking about this as I was doing one of the other 543s this morning. Really, I mean, this goes back to like super old school airbrushing, when they used to airbrush like products, and they used to, basically they were human Photoshop artists. They would take a photograph and then they would airbrush it to clean it up or highlight a certain area or that kind of thing. And this goes right back to that, which is a lot of fun. I never got to do it. I came into airbrushing just as the computer was kind of like taking over all that job, so I didn't get to do any of that. But yeah, would you measure the tip or the shaft? Yeah, that's the thing, Bobby. It would depend. You need to measure, yeah. So let me take a second and we'll talk about that. Actually, I'll use one of these 543s and dump this down here so you can see it. All right, so a needle, and I'm going to do a horribly inaccurate cartoon needle, but this diameter here, the barrel of the needle, that measurement is really important, because that's if you get a needle that's either bigger than that, it won't fit in the airbrush. If it's too small, the needle seal, which is halfway through the brush, that Teflon seal, if it's smaller than that, you can never get it so that the paint won't come back into the brush. So that measurement is really important. It's specific to each brush, so that's important there. But it's also the taper of the needle too. So with a Micron C, that taper is really long, or in the Micron B, same thing. It's really long, and that's what helps to give it its detail. If you had a shorter, and I talk about this on the spa day, so you'll see this if you watch the spa day video this week. So if the needle is real short like that, come on, man, focus. There we go. It'll still fit into the nozzle, but what'll happen is here's the end of your nozzle, which is in the brush like this. Would you stop with the weird focusing? I should throw the other lens in because it won't do this wonky. Come back to me. Come on. There we go. So here's a nozzle. So if you say grind down your needle and it just sticks out like this, the airbrush won't give you as good of detail, but it will also allow you to spray a lot heavier paint, because what happens is this acts more like an on and off switch now. You pull the needle back and now there's no needle in the nozzle. You know what I mean? So you pull that one back and it's wide open now. So you can get all kinds of fat paint through there. But if you have the nozzle like the Micron, or the needle and nozzle like the Micron, that needle sticks way out. So no matter how far you pull that back, there'll always be a bit of the needle sticking out. So that's why that geometry of that cone makes such a big difference. If you had the correct barrel size needle, you could have different nozzle or different taper sizes still work with the airbrush. It would change the way that it works, but they would all work. If the barrel of that needle is different, it won't fit in the brush. It'll be too big, or like we said, it'll be too small and the paint will come back in. So hopefully that clears that up. Yeah, so like I said, if you had a box of needles and a micrometer, you could probably figure out what needles go with what airbrushes, unless they were, really super close. I hope that helps. And there you go, Cody got it. Excellent, excellent. Juan, what's up? All right. where was I? Oh, shadows. I keep saying drop shadows, but they're really just shadows. Okay, this is the money one here. Actually, I'll put an extra magnet on here because I don't want it to come up. So this is the money one here. This shadow right here, it really tells the whole story of that tab, how it curves up and away. So I want to make sure we get this shadow in really nicely. And you'll see when I pull this, even though I haven't painted the rest of the tab yet, having that shadow in there, both shadows will really give this thing a lot of three-dimensionality just out of the gate. So let's pull this now. Move all these little magnets. So there we go. So even just the gray now, that looks like you could pick it up. Now it's going to get better when I get the rest of the junk on here, but yeah, it's a good start. All right, I'll back you up again because get a little bit of everything here. A little bit of that and that. Yes, and Cody's right. If you can lean on a really good place like Coast will have a lot of information. The guys at Spray Gunner are all over it. Midwest Airbrush, they have a bunch of great people there. You can obviously contact the company that made your airbrush, or the like Iwata Medea or Pache or Badger. As far as the Chinese companies, you can't do the same thing. There is no real person to contact, which makes them kind of rough. But any of the big companies, there's usually a U.S. rep that you can send an email to or even call. So, all right. So next up, so now that I've got all that, the next step on any of these 543s for me is always the white areas. And with this, it's interesting because sometimes there's really like cut and dry, like highlight areas, bright areas that are really easy to see. With this one, there really isn't. I mean, obviously the button that holds the tab on, that's really in your face. This highlight here, but these highlights here are not really that defined. But there is some stuff about them that makes them work. Like for instance, whatever this crease is right here, that's really important. So what I'll do is I'll do a combination of like a stencil and also a guide. So this one here is more of a guide. This is just telling me where to spray the white. Make sure I'm focused. Come on, baby. And this one here, though, this one is all white. So this is good. This one will act more like a stencil, where I don't have to like, you'll see. When I get into it, there'll be some areas that I'll use as a guide and then just airbrush shapes in them. But there'll be stuff like this one here, which is just like a stencil. I'll just hose it down and paint it all white. All right, let's do the other side here. And again, these ones here are more of a guide. And you'll see what I mean when I do it, when I spray it. Let's go down here, like that, like that. And this is going to come around here, like that. Who knew there was so much in a little pull tab? Okay. So if you decide to kind of paint like this and you're getting into this and you have an image like this that's kind of hard to determine like what you should be cutting out, if you use a program like Photoshop, you can posterize the image, which what that does is it takes the values in the image and you can determine how many steps of those values there are. So in a regular photo, there's hundreds of steps of variation between the lights and the darks, but you can set it for whatever you want. Like if I had 4, for instance, it would go through this image and divide up all the lights and darks into 4 different values, lightest, light, dark, and then darkest, for instance. And then it would be really easy for you to see what to kind of cut out. So you can use that trick too. If you want to see that happen, Scott McKay on his Memorial Day feed, he posterizes the image that he has, and it just, like I said, it makes it more, it simplifies it so you can see what the hell is going on with it. What else we got? Enzo, you're not late. You're right on time. Yeah, I agree with Cody. If there's a huge, if you're not sure, just I don't know, especially with like an eclipse. I was just at Hobby Lobby today, and they have Eclipse needles and nozzles in stock, which is the only thing they really sell from Iwata. They sell some Neo stuff, but a needle I think from Coast is like $10. So if in doubt, it helps to buy a new one. All right, so for this tab, there's some shading that's going on here too. So this is also kind of a general thing. So I'm going to just kind of cut a little bit beyond what needs to be painted, and then I'll just adjust it as I go. All right, so that should be all the white. Everything's going to be all white. That's a play on words. All right, I'll stop, I promise. All right, so we line this one up. I know you can't see it. I'll move the camera in a second. No, I won't. I'll move it now because that's why you're here, so you can see stuff, not so you can watch me fumble off camera. All right, so just line this up, and as I do these, you start to get into this, and the painting becomes more and more developed, it becomes more and more important, obviously, to make sure that these cutouts are lined up. Because if not, you got to fix it, and that's no fun. And trust me, I've been there. I'm usually there all the time, actually. When I'm trying to rush through these things during the week, there's always one that gets kind of messed up. I'm trying to remember, there was a car just recently that I did. Not the Cadillac, not this last time around the Dart. It was the week before, I think. And man, was that totally misaligned. I screwed that one up hard. You just have to, keep going into it. I've recently been playing with reference pictures in Procreate. I found that inverting colors to negative can be helpful to see what's going on in an image you intend to cut up for masking. That's awesome, Simon. Yeah, Procreate's amazingly powerful. It's also an Apple thing, and I'm a PC guy, so I look on with envy from the Procreate stuff. All right, I still have white in the brush. I'm still going to use the 1-to-1 white. Actually, I need a little bit more of it. So, like I said, the center of the tab, I'm going to darken this a little bit for you guys. It's a little bit too bright. You guys aren't really getting the full view. Oh, yes, it goes right back to what it was. Hey, stop. That's better. All right, we're fine. We're fine. All right, white. So like this, the center of this tab is all white. Now again, 1-to-1 will cover really well, but it's still really, really thin, so I can't just like spray it. If I do that, it will spiderweb. So I have to go over this a few times, but it really doesn't take long. Okay, so there's that. So the tab itself, now this is where, this is more of a guide. So this bottom part down here uses the edges of that template. It's pretty cut and dry. But as I get up towards the top of this thing, I'm not going to go right to that cut edge right there. I'm just going to kind of come in short of it and add that highlight where it is, like this. The same thing on this side too. This side doesn't have the highlight go all the way to the end. There's some modeling in there. So I'm just going to kind of follow what it's doing on the reference photo. And fortunately, this tab is really beat up too. It's got a lot of scratches and stuff in it, and a lot of bends in the aluminum. So I don't have to be super smooth or perfect with this, which is great. In fact, it looks better if I do have some modeling in there. All right, good. So the same thing for these. This whole thing is more of a guide than a hard stencil. So like this part here, as I spider web it all over the place, because I'm impatient. This side here is bright, but then it fades out around the rest of it. Why am I clogging here? There we go. Same thing up here, the bottom of this little opening has all the white, and then it just kind of fades out to the rest of it. Same thing with the rest of the tab. Just a really light coat of white everywhere, just to kind of lock it in, and then I'll adjust it as soon as I pull the whatever I'm trying to say. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Brain shot, kids. Shot. Ta-da! All right, that's not bright enough, but that's okay. It's not bright enough at all. So I'm going to throw this back on because I need it. I need this template to do this part here. So just reline this up. Now it's easy because I can see it. Yes. So it's great. The last time, I almost stabbed myself. The last time I was at the Butler was to see the pinstriping show that Steve Chizeka and all the other amazing pinstripers put on, called American Stripe. And so that was the last time I was at the Butler. So to be back there is awesome. If you are in the Ohio area, Northeast Ohio area, the Butler is a great take, especially as an airbrush artist. They have a number of Peter Mayer paintings. And if you're not familiar with Peter's work, you should check him out. He does these life-size photorealistic paintings. He's mostly known for cars, but he does all kinds of things. The Butler has they do have a car painting, which is a life-size car painting. It's beyond belief. But he also has a painting of a horse as well in the Butler, and it might be bigger than life-size. It's monumental. Just an amazing thing to see. And again, if you're in the area at the end of the month, the mid-year annual is going to be up, and I'll have a piece in it. So, all right, so I'm going to hit this again on this back side because this highlight needs to be much brighter. So I'm just running over it, and it's hard with these thin highlights to see what I'm doing, so I just kind of paint on faith. Like I know what what the coat is, so I can't really see it being applied, but as soon as I feel like that's the coat that I'm used to, I automatically move on, even though I can't see what I'm doing in that tiny little spot. It's so easy for me to put too much paint on there and flood it out in a template like this, so I really try to retain my patience, I guess. It's not always easy to do. It's usually not ever easy to do. Roughly how far away from the surface? So when I was spraying that, I was maybe 2 inches away to do that. All right, let's see what we got. Let's see if that's better. That's a whole lot of magnets. All right, there we go. Much better. Okay, good. Okay, so now that I've got all the white areas kind of locked in, I can go back in with the white and kind of finish them up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the original cutout. So when I cut out the tab, this is the negative that I didn't end up using, but now I can use it. So what it does is this just kind of protects the background for me. So drop a few magnets on this, and that's why I always save the cutouts, because even though I didn't intend to use this, now I can. So, and I got the center here. So in every week's 543s, I have all the cutouts from every painting, all going all the way back. So if I had to, which I don't ever do, if I had to like repaint a 543, I have all the cutouts. In fact, it would be super easy to do a second one because I've done all the work of cutting out. I just have to paint it now. So I did have to do it a few times, and I think I told the story. I not accidentally, but I shipped out paintings that were sold and completely forgot that I sent them out and thought I lost them, so I redid them and sent them all out again. It was not fun. James, have a good one, man. Perfect day for sailing. That sounds so nice. Yes, I mean that's it, and it's more the reduction. It's the balance of that reduction versus how far you are away. Yeah, with the paint this thin, if you're really far away, like 6 to 8 inches, the paint will dry before it gets there. So yeah. All right, let's see what we got here. So now I've got the white back in here. So now what I can do is I can kind of use this. So it's going to spray for me. There we go. I can use the white to kind of just blend out those harder stencil lines and to bump up any, like for instance, well, I'll do that with a paintbrush, I think. There's some highlights on here that I'm going to need to put on with a paintbrush. Why is this not spraying? Oh, it's got a little clog in it. Hold on. I'm like, this isn't spraying at all. Oh, I know why it's not spraying. Sometimes when you airbrush, you need a compressor that's on. Give that a second. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I turned it off when I left for the museum and I never turned the compressor back on. So that'll take a minute to charge back up, but that's why I wasn't spraying. So we can have a cheers now. Love the randomness of this painting. When selling your art, do you find that people gravitate more towards the random subjects or more of the conventional ones? Cody, I wish I could answer that question. I was just talking with Mike Stevenson about that. With the 543s, sometimes when I do them and it's a real specific topic, more times than not, the person that suggested that painting will grab it because it is really specific. But it always blows me away that random paintings that I necessarily don't think or think it's going to be around for a long time, someone will just gravitate to. Now, there are subjects that are universally popular. When I paint a 57 Chevy, even if you're not into cars, everyone identifies that as the car from the 50s. So that, if I do a 57 Chevy, that's usually going to go. Interestingly enough, food paintings don't generally do very well. I have a lot of the food paintings, which, there's that. The wildlife paintings do really well too. Like they don't hang around very long. And so I don't know, there isn't a real good answer for that, which is great for me because I don't want to get stuck into doing like one topic. It's one of the most enjoyable parts of the whole 543 thing is to see all the different suggestions, and some of them are completely off the wall, which I absolutely love. So yeah, it's an excellent question that I do not have an answer for. All right, so now that we have air, which is an important component of airbrushing, I can finish doing what I started out doing. All right, so things like this, there's like a couple little glints of highlights here. This reflection right here on the pull tab is really bright. So I can go back in on this one now and just kind of push that out a little bit. And then all the little internal highlights, like in between this little ridge right here, there's another highlight that I could cut out a tab for that, but I don't need to because it's literally right. I know where to put it. You know what I mean? And this is really bright right here too. In fact, it's actually bright all through here as well. And the side of the ridge around this button is really bright, so we'll get that. So you see what I mean? So that template there becomes more of a drawing guide than an actual template. It's just kind of put stuff in there for me so I don't have to draw it all out. A little bit of a extra highlight on this side. There's some great texture on here too, which we'll be putting in to get rolling. Just a little bit brighter. That's good, that's good. More up here. So this is a 0.3 millimeter brush, this Rich Pen. And for the white, it's neat because this brush is brushed processes that thicker paint a little bit better than the real thin, small airbrushes. I can do some pretty close details even though this is thick paint. If I put this in like the Micron B, it's going to be too thick and it's going to actually give me out more of a hard time. It's going to want to, just kind of get stuck in there and then spit out. But because this brush is a little bit heavier, it can really, process that paint well. Okay, I feel good about that. I feel good about that. What else we got? What am I missing? John, what's up? Callie went nuts over that old lipo painting. You never know what will pull. Yeah, exactly, John. You know more than anyone. So yeah, it's weird. People just connect with things, and I love that. Like I used the example with Mike. I had a suggestion for it was a cooking pot from South Africa, and it was a real specific thing. It's this traditional, like campfire type open fire cooking pot that's really traditional, had a name and everything. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a really cool thing. I looked it up, and it was really neat. Like it looked like cast iron, but I don't know what it was made out of anyway. So I painted it. And I'm like, okay, I did this. It was fun, but no one ever is going to buy this. It's just going to go up on the site. It's going to be there forever. But someone, and not the person that suggested it, but someone else bought it. And I'm like, they knew exactly what it was, and they just connected with it. So yeah, I never know. And it's fun to guess for me too, because sometimes I think, oh, this one's definitely going to go, and it doesn't. Or sometimes I'm thinking, this is a weird one. No one's going to want it, and it does. So I don't know. All right, so now we'll break out the Micron B. So with this, I'm going to use the 1 to 10 mix, 1 part paint to 10 parts reducer. Carlos, yes, cheers indeed. I love my coffee. Coffee makes me happy. All right, so 1 to 10. 1 to 10 works really well. I'm going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to take this mask off. I could do all this with the mask on, but this black is really controllable. And if there's anything that I missed, I can fix it. Like if something's not quite aligned right, but it seems pretty good. I can fix it now, which is nice. All right, let's see what we got here. Make sure I'm in the right spot here. All right, so now I can add the rest of the little extra drop shadows, or I keep saying drop shadows, I don't know why. So any of the other little shadows, and then this guy here is a little bit darker. And now with this black I can start to put in that banged up texture as well. If you're following the Open Studio on Wednesdays, you'll see a lot of this. I do this a lot with that painting just because that bike is so banged up. It's beautifully banged up. I mean, it's, over 100 years worth of use on that bike. But it's great being able to do that kind of texture, just out of the gate with a brush, I am going to need to use the paintbrush a little bit with this painting, but not much at all. So the shadow from the little pull tab hinge, or whatever they call this, pull tab button. And then this side is got the shadow in it too. It's so funny, that like I was just talking about with the photograph for this one, some dude or dudette had an old vintage pull tab and was selling it for like $1 on eBay, and I'm making a whole painting out of that. So, and inside of here, this is great. So inside of the tab, there's a shadow, but it doesn't go all the way down. There's reflected light off of the bottom of the tab from the well, in this case, whatever the desk it was sitting on. So this one I can just kind of put in, but that really does a lot to separate that. So it goes all the way around, so I'm just going to keep it going. And if my big fat head gets in the way, please start yelling out. So as far as being a certain distance away, this is about anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 inch away. You're really close here. And I can get a lot closer, but I need this kind of to be soft, so it looks like the shadow that it should be. What's going on with this? All right. Back side of this has a little bit more shadow. Top of this. My very first Tech Tuesday was about the death grip. So when I'm doing these real tight detail type things, or most airbrushing actually, I tend to over grip. I really clamp down on the airbrush because I'm kind of concentrating too hard, and it's something that after 30 years of airbrushing I still do it. I have to mentally realize that it's happening so I can just relax, and I feel the tension going all the way up into my shoulder and into my neck. I'm just so wound up, and I thought everyone felt that, but what I have realized since is it's not a universal thing. Some people don't do that. So predicting human behavior is still unpredictable. It's a little bit, yeah, Cody. All right. So what I'm feeling is the background isn't dark enough up top, which again, because try to save everything is not a big deal at all. I actually can use the old cutouts to help me out with this. So I'm going to put this back in where it was. I don't need, magnets everywhere on this. I just need to kind of hold it down a little bit. So now I can darken mostly up in this area here. So what I do is I kind of develop the dark where I need it to be, and then spread it out from there. So that way I know where, kind of the target value that I have to hit. I also don't want to get too close to down here because I need, like I said, I need that shadow there to really give it that 3D look. So it's really above that kind of needs to be darker like that. And that should be good. Yeah, I like that better. So that really, by darkening that really lets that, pop off. And the reason why I needed to do that is because there is a kind of a shadow that's going on just on the edge of this thing. As it curls up, it seems to be catching that shadow right there. It gets really dark down in here, but I'm not going to do it as dark as the photocopy. Just going to give it a little bit. We just had a drive-by. I don't know what kind of bug that was. Been getting random yellow jackets inside the house, and I don't know where they're coming from. All right, there we go. Feeling good about that. Yeah, good. All right, so let's add some of the highlights in. I'll turn this on so you can see what I'm... No, not that one. I want... Not that one. I want this one. All right. What'd I miss? Anything? I also tense up and concentrating. Franz, that's good to hear. I mean, not good to hear. We call 3 feet pot used to cook over open fire and make some kind of stew inside. Yeah, that's it. That's it, Franz. Potchi. That's what it was, and I wouldn't have remembered that unless you typed it. That was exactly what it was. Yeah, really cool, and it was a fun painting to do too, because it was I had the fire, and I had it sitting there, and it's cooking, and it was really interesting. All right, so for this, I'm going to start with the white because it's not going to take much. I don't think there's much black on this, just around that button. Oop. Put on I call it the pizza glove because it keeps all the if I'm eating pizza, it keeps all that off the painting. All right, so grab some white here. First one, and again, if you can narrow down the most important bits of a painting, this highlight here is definitely one of them. So this highlight again will really help that key to pop off the painting. I still do it no matter when. I mean, all right, I'll rephrase that. If I'm mowing the lawn at 10 a.m. and I finish at 11 a.m., I'm not popping a beer, but when I do the whole lawn and it, I'm done in the afternoon, one of the things that I would do, because when I was living in Massachusetts and my parents had were still living in the same house that we grew up in, I would go over and do the lawn, and then after the lawn was done, I would sit in the backyard with Dad and have a beer and talk about everything. So I even do it now. Like when I finish the lawn here, I'll stop and crack a beer and have one with Dad. Get me a Frosty. All right, so now same thing with this. Any of the little lighter, like tiny details that can't be not can't be done with the airbrush, but just can't be done as easily with the airbrush. I do those now. Now it's interesting. The white, even with the paintbrush, will still have blue shift to it. It's just the way that the light goes through, passes through those little bits of paint that will cause that. So again, on a big time painting, I can fix that with the little blue shift adjuster I have, the orange color. But on a painting like this, it's time based, so the blue shift never gets fixed. And in the teeny weeny details, the way I can get rid of them is just by going over them and making those areas more opaque. Because it's the transparent, it's that paint kind of coming through, or the light coming through that paint that causes that shift. All right, so there is a bright highlight along the edge of the tab here, so I'll put that in. And there's another one on the other side. Up on here, I kind of lost it when I did the shadow on the side. That's okay, we'll pull it back out. Good. It's a little bit dark. Should I? I don't know. All right, no, I'm not gonna do it. I could keep screwing with it, but again, here we go. It's like, how much can I really put into it? If I spend 20 hours on it, that's great, but then it's not a 543 anymore. All right, grab a little bit of black and we'll finish this up. I'll even I'll show you the clear process too, since we're going to be done fairly quickly. All right, so this is just opaque black. So again, the little details that would be, really difficult to do with the airbrush, and again, in the end of the day, it's for me, it doesn't matter as much how I did it. I just want to make sure I do it the way it should be done, instead of becoming real tool dependent. All right, good. And that'll do it. That is how it works. So let me back you guys up. I'm going to sign this thing, and then I'll clear it right here so you can see how I do that. Back that up. And there is your 543 pull tab. So when I sign these things, and I did a Tech Tuesday on this too, because someone had asked, and then we got another request on that same topic, so it worked out well that I did that. So for the 543s, when I'm signing the white part of it, I'll use the Pigma Micron pens, and usually it's the 01 that I'll use for this. So I'll just sign it here, and I'll show you. All right, here's that. Now, if it was say it was reversed and I had to sign the dark part of it, what I do with that, and you can watch the whole Tech Tuesday on this and get the full Monty. I'll just use this dip pen. So I'll use actually Createx with this, and it's reduced Createx. That's reduced. I think it's 2 to 1, 2 parts paint to 1 part reducer, and I'll just use this pen to sign it there. So it's either white or black depending on what's going on. All right, so let's clear this thing. I need one thing first to get this thing. Hold on. This is super high tech. So this is the top of a Staples, file box. And what I love about this is it's got a little ridge on it. So as I spray these small items, the overspray basically stays within this. So I can do this right here. I don't have to bring this out to the spray booth. So what I do, now this is why I grab a glove. Thanks, Juan, thanks. So this is, again, why I kind of lift up that last piece of tape when I go to put this on, because now this is the beginning of it. And as I run this across, it's automatically underneath the next piece, so it just pulls that up. So I don't have to, pick it every side. It just automatically pulls up the next piece for me. And again, after doing about a jillion of these things, you learn these things. All right, so just tack that down there. And now to clear these things, what I use is, and if you've got one, you've seen it up close. Where's my bottle? Where's my bottle? Did I? Oh, I might have moved it over the other side. I might have. Yeah, I probably was using it for something else. So this is a reasonable facsimile. So this is 4050 gloss that I add to a lot of the paint. There's the satin version of this. I think it's 4051 maybe. But it's UVLS matte, UVLS satin. That's what I use to clear all these. Now I do have that pre-mixed in here. Ooh, as I knocked the camera with my head. So this is reduced 10%, and that's the actual reduction ratio that they recommend for this stuff. Now to get this to spray, you need something fairly good size as far as nozzle. So what I use to do that is the Grex Tritium, this guy right here. And this one has a 0.7 millimeter nozzle in it. And it's got a little fan cap on the end. I love this brush. When I'm doing 543s, this is I clear all of them with it. I don't use this for base coat sealer. Base coat sealer needs actually even a bigger nozzle than this. So it needs at least a 1, but they recommend a 1.2 spray gun. And it's the same thing. If you over reduce that stuff, it's not going to stick the way it should. So I really try to, while I abuse the reduction ratios on everything else, I don't abuse that with the sealer or the clear, because I want them to perform the way they're supposed to perform. So you match the gun to that. All right. Let me do this. All right, so come on. There we go. So this goes in here. This is already pre-mixed. I use a lot of this stuff, so I usually keep, a half an ounce of this stuff ready to go at any given time. So it takes about that much right there. And then I'm going to turn this at an angle so you can see it. You can see what I see. Okay, so what it is, it's usually 2 to 3 coats, but I'll show you the first coat and then we'll break because it's going to take about 10 minutes for this to dry out. And you want to make sure it's dry before you put the next coat on. So I'm not going to rush this. I'm going to do this coat and then we'll sign off. So, but it'll give you a good idea. All right. So what you want to do is it's a 50% overlap, and I try to be, in this case, I try to be about 4 to 5 inches away. So about here. I'm going to do this at more of an angle so you can actually see the coat being applied. So you get that going, and just want to, on the first pass, you just want to see that kind of glisten on it like that. That's it. And that's the first coat. That's it. So now what I do is I put this aside and let it dry, and then I'll put on another coat. If it needs it, I'll put on a third, but generally I don't. Generally that's pretty much it. 2 coats and it's done. So there you go. That's how it works. I'm going to switch over now to the other camera, and as soon as I can reach it, what am I doing? That's what I'm doing. Okay. It's like jungle gym stuff. There we go. All right. So that's it. So thank you for hanging out with me for the 543. Also, I stuck on the hose here. Sorry. Camera. thank you all again. Again, I cannot say it enough. It's been fun this past 10 months getting this YouTube channel up and running. I started it back in 2011. So I've had this channel for a long time, but I haven't put anything on it. So to have it kind of go where it's going in the last 10 months has made me very, very happy. It's a lot of fun making content for it, and it's even more fun having you guys go back and forth on that content. And the reason why things are growing is, again, because you're clicking the like button and subscribing and putting a comment in where you feel it's necessary, or want to go back and forth. All that stuff has really helped things grow here. So I cannot thank you enough. We are at that milestone. Things will be changing now once the final approvals are in for the monetization, which is great. It's great. It opens up a whole bunch of new things, and it makes, like I said, it makes this channel sustainable for me. It lets me put aside that time during the week to get all that done. So I have only you guys to thank. So there we go. Thursday Live. That was it. So I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back next Thursday. We are going full steam. If you haven't checked the Open Studio this week and next week, I'm finishing up the glass headlight, the reflections and all that. It's the shiniest part of that painting. I had a lot of fun doing it. I finished next week's early, so that's already, I have it all finished. It's just going to go live on Wednesday. But that painting is on episode 40 or 41 right now. So we're about 20 hours in that painting. There's probably another 20 to go. But having a good time with it. So the next Open Studio is going to be a razor blade painting. So there you go. You get the inside track on that too. All right. So enjoy your Thursday. I hope you all had a good time. I know I did. And for Steve Leahy and Open Studio and all you guys and girls, I will catch you guys next time. Thanks a lot.